Hello, I'm the Vortex detective Dan Shaw, and this is Mikki Bazurto-Greene. And I'm just delighted to have this conversation with you at last and to be able to share it with viewers. So, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We have an agenda of sorts, and you sent me some potential questions which I've regarded and considered, and It is a it's a deep question that we're hoping to explore today. For me, it's almost the only question worth exploring. And it has to do with an ordinary reality and non-ordinary reality in a certain sense, and how we, speaking for myself, I predominantly exist in a kind of mundane or ordinary reality with glimpses of the extraordinary, which we could call paranormal. But that's, not a great term. Now, for your experience, if I understand it properly, you've had an ability to see energies since you were a very young child. Is that right?
That's true.
And
And being a young child, um, you don't know any different. You think that that's the way everybody does it. So it takes you, I think for most young children, it takes them a while to figure out until they test it against other people that that's not the way everybody sees it.
so you're
So
actually, tell us what you're seeing when I've used air quotes for energies. Tell us what you were seeing that other people weren't seeing and give us that maybe early scenario.
so I suspect that I was probably very intuitive eh, ever since I was born. But the earliest memory that I have is being a young child. And I have a memory around 7 years old, but I have other memories at 3 and 4 that it was easy for me to hear things that most people didn't hear into the subtle realms, but it was also easy for me to see into the subtle realms. So I would see people walking past me that nobody else saw. It would happen in the schoolyard. It would happen in the grocery store. It would happen in our house. It would happen even outside. And luckily, I was very lucky. My mother really believed everything that I was seeing and hearing, and that was a support to me. So that was very, very, very good. So at age 7, I have a story. If it's okay if I tell that.
Please do.
Okay. And 7 years old, I loved books, and as you can tell, I really loved books, even as a young child. And I was sprawled across my bedroom, a bed, reading a book, and I hear crying. And I look across the room, and my closet door was ajar. And we lived in a very, very old house, of a house built in 1892, before there was even electricity. And so our house had been retrofitted with electricity later, but it was a truly old, old house. And there's a little girl in my closet crying, and she's dressed in a pink party dress that's very old fashioned. And she's got like a homemade doll that she's holding on to, but she's just weeping. And I felt so much. It's funny, I wasn't even scared. I thought, she's so sad. We've got to help her. So I ran downstairs to get my mom and said, we've got to help her. She's so sad. And when we go back upstairs, she's not there anymore. And so my mom believed me, and that I think was a real support to me. So it was easy for me to see um, apparitions as a child, and it was easy for me as a clairaudient to hear messages. So that was just a normal thing for me growing up.
Brilliant that you had that parental support for that.
Yeah, that was fabulous. That was probably what supported me. And then later on, when I married my husband, very supportive of that also. So I got that blessing, probably as a way for me to keep using it in the work that I do. So, yeah.
Okay, so you've had years to, I would say, begin to cope with this a kind of an extraordinary ability that not everybody seems to display. And of course, not just cope with it, but to develop the skills. And so how do you understand like the general possibility that other people could also be clairaudient, that they could see and to clairvoyant and see and hear into these subtle dimensions, as you say?
It is my firm and belief, deep belief that this is not special to me, that everybody has the capability to discern into the subtle realms. So whether they're discerning into the subtle realms through just a knowing, which is called a gut instinct, or just a knowing. And we've all had this. I think everybody's had some time in their life when the phone rang and you knew who it was, or you even knew what the person on the other end was going to say, or you just knew something. So I believe that everybody can do this. It really is a matter of practice. And I believe there's not a huge difference between having intuition, which I believe every human being has, and being psychic, or having a stronger capability into the subtle realms. It's really a matter of practice. And some of us, just for some reason, we didn't get blocked as much. And a lot of us, because the cultures we live in, get blocked. And I think we just have to remove the blocks out of the way. And that's a lot of the work that I'm doing, attempting to do in the world, is elevate people's consciousness so that they understand that they have these capabilities. They just need to remember them and practice them. And I actually did end up going to a number of teachers and intuitives later in my life, and training with them and actually practicing it. And now it's clear to me that nobody is without these capabilities. Just a matter of practice.
And so what kind of practices are you're doing with your clients or supporting for your clients to do?
Well, there's a wide variety of them. It can be as subtle as taking an envelope and putting a picture in it, or an object, and then focusing in on that and seeing what comes to you. There's a lot of different practices, and everybody will have an area that usually is more developed or easier for them to get to than another one. So there's many different clairs, or abilities to look into the subtle dimensions or the subtle energies. So I'm particularly good at clairaudience, the ability to hear, but also clairvoyance, the ability to see. And other people might be really good at clairalience, which is the ability to smell. So into the subtle realms. So, and we can develop all of them if we'd like. So everybody's different. And there's one that will usually stand out for most people.
Far out, far out. I totally agree. I totally agree. Now, if I may, I'll just jump right to I've waited this long to say Vortex. So, how does that relate to what we think of as paranormal places or power points?
PowerPoints, paranormal places, or what I are
Vortexes.
also called, yeah, I believe vortexes. Now, you might think differently, but I believe there's vortexes everywhere, everywhere.
Agree.
There are
I agree.
vortexes in my front yard. and, and so a vortex is, you know, an energy configuration. that can be almost anywhere. And they can be also diminished, they can be expanded, they can be closed up. So there's a lot of, it's just energy. So it can be, energy can always be transformed and transmuted, and it doesn't go away, but it can be changed. And a vortex is an opera. So vortexes can be lots of different things. My I can tell you, if you don't mind, my story about my first time with a vortex. And this is probably about 10 years ago when I was first starting to do the work that I do with shifting energy in people's bodies, in animals' bodies. And this was my first experience with a vortex. My 16-year-old, 17-year-old daughter comes home from her school, which is in a part of California, and it is the oldest high school in California, built back in, I think it's 1858, so, or 1851, 1858, that time frame. Very old school, an all girls Catholic school. And she comes home and she says, Mom, you have got to help me with my English class. And I'm like, what's going on? She said, there's all these spirits coming out of the corner of the room, and they're going across um, the ceiling, and they're hanging on the teacher, and the teacher's voice is slowing down to a drag. And I said, wow, that's different. And she said, I can't focus in on my test because there's so much going on in the room. So, needless to say, my daughter does have a version of being able to see things the same way I can. So I said, okay, I'll help. I walk into the classroom. This is after school. And the immediate thing I notice is there's a vortex in the corner. It's partially outside, it's partially inside of the room. And I can see all kinds of things coming out of this vortex. It's actually more of a portal and a vortex at the same time.
And what
So
does it look like to you?
it looks like I can't see the actual opening or the vortex itself. I can just feel the
Okay.
energy of it, but I can see all the things coming out of it.
Uh-huh.
I can see all of the apparitions, and they range. There's like a soldier, and then there's some woman, and then there's a little girl, and just all these different apparitions coming out of it. But what I noticed more directly than that even is right behind the door that I just walked in is a young boy of about 13 or 14 years old. And he's dressed in almost like rags. And I said to him, what are you doing here? And he said, I don't know. And then he shows me immediately a landscape. And it feels like it's just this area that we're in. And it looks like a ranch. And there's been some kind of drought. So everybody, all the animals, all the people, they're dead. And he said, and so I'm speaking to him, I'm like, well, where are your parents? And he said, I've had no parents, but Maria adopted me and I worked on the ranch. And so then I realized that one of my jobs at that moment is going to be to help him move on. And that's what I did. I did some work where I show him the light and I get him toward that. At first, he didn't want to go. So we had to call in this person who had adopted him, Maria, and got her to come and help him move. And he did. And then I proceeded to do the work of getting this portal to close up, at least on the inside of the building. And I did that work. And all of these apparitions kind of disappeared, went back into the portal before it was closed. They just went away. What I was not able to do was close the portal and the vortex energy on the outside of the building. So I had to go back to my teacher, and I remember saying, why did I have such a hard time closing that part up? And she said, was there a river or a body of water there? So I went and found some old maps of the school and found out that before this school was built there, there was a ranchero there,
Mhm.
and there was a river, a small stream that ran right through there. So my teacher told me, when you're dealing with water, you will have a harder time closing up a vortex energy or a portal. You'll have a hard time closing a portal because the water is a conduit and it keeps it going. So I thought that was new stuff I'd learned that I didn't know. So over the years, I've learned a lot about how to deal with portals or vortex energy that's causing a problem. If a vortex is there and it's not causing a problem, there's no need to do anything about it. It's only something you might want to shift energy with when it's causing some kind of harm or some kind of problem. So, needless to say, the teacher's voice, my daughter was very thankful. She was totally able to focus in on her English test, and her teacher stopped having the like the slow movements and the energy, I guess, suck that was happening with her, and she went back to being normal. So,
Okay, well, that was a whole can of worms you just opened up there. Okay, well, thank you for sharing all that. So, there we get apparently, evidently, some kind of relationship between this paranormal place, which whatever word we're using, vortex or whatever, and interdimensional beings, beings from another time and place. Uh, so
sometimes that happens in a portal or a vortex situation, and sometimes it doesn't. So,
okay,
I have two portals in my front yard, and they don't cause me any problems at all. So, so I
right,
guess
right.
it just depends. It's
Okay, so just to kind of put that, I want to kind of step back again, back to the macro picture here. Like, so you're in practice, you're doing work with people and presumably some work with places, and we can see the kind of the interrelationship there with that last example. But what is your what's your present kind of balance with that, and are you trending in a certain direction?
well, I have for the last 10 years worked primarily with human beings, shifting energies in their body to help with emotional disturbances. If people are feeling stuck, they're feeling uncertain, um, they're they're feeling like off balance. And it could be a physical thing, it could be an emotional thing, it could be a spiritual thing, it could be even a mental thing. I'm shifting the energy in their bodies. I've been doing that for a decade. But I also do it for animals. And now it's graduated to sites, places on the earth. And I've worked in, over the last more than 2 years, I've worked in 5 different places, including Portugal, the Azores, Vancouver Island, and a number of places. And I will be going to the Arctic Circle in 2 weeks, actually less than a week. And I'll be working up there on shifting energy around earth grid, what are called earth grid lines and ley lines, um, for support to the earth and support to human beings, because it affects so many different things related to earth. It reflects, it affects our climate. It affects how we're related to what's happening out in outer space with the sun, the moon, the planets. So there's a lot of effects that go on as a result of shifting our energy around grid lines. So yeah,
Can you we all wish that we could see these lines with our eyes. Uh, I don't have that skill or myself, but sometimes the sky appears violet to me, and I take that as a good sign. Can you give us an idea what I mean? How does that actually look? Is there a visual? How does the visual come? Just we want to know how that looks.
that's so funny because the first time it happened to me, I was in the Azores. And at first I didn't see it. All I heard was my through my clairaudience, a voice that said, "This is where we want you to put the grid line." So it took another 2 weeks before I was shown what the grid line looked like and where it was to move it. So it's in what the way I see it, and I believe any other intuitive might see it completely differently than I do. I don't have enough data points. I haven't been out there to see what other people actually see. I see it as a either translucent uh, a line, or sometimes I'll see it as it's gray, and that's the way I see it. But once again, I'm seeing it differently in different places. So I believe that that would be the case. So I haven't seen a lot of bright colors right now. Oh, I also worked in Switzerland. I was just there last year and I did a lot of earth grid work around CERN, which is it's like where the Big Bang Theory kind of came from or was tested in a particles physics research facility there
Sure.
in Geneva, outside of
CERN.
Geneva.
CERN. CERN. Yeah.
Yes. So I
Mhm.
did some work there. I was asked to go there by Spirit, and I went. And the way I saw it there was a little different than I'd seen it before. It was darker lines. And I saw what I usually will see is they might look frayed, they might look bloated, they might be too thin, they might be cut off. These are the places, and then I'm always asking, what do I need to do? Do I need to get rid of the frayed one? Do I need to reduce the inflammation in the bloated one? Am I extending this one? Am I shortening that one? So that's the way I look at it. Now in CERN, it was very, very um, entangled. It was extreme. The grid lines there were extremely entangled. So that the work was done to untangle them.
And I'm thinking that when you say work, you're meaning consciousness, intention, magic kind of level of energy. I don't know
Yes.
that you're using any kind of physical component, none. But you have a technique of dowsing as well. To what degree does that dowsing come in? Because
Well,
you have such a knowing. Well, why would you even pull out a pendulum or however you do?
well, I don't, I, my body is the pendulum. So I don't use a physical thing, but I do that with a human being too. When I'm working with a human being, I am literally physically talking to the whole of the human being. So I'm talking to their mental capacities, their emotional capacities, their spiritual capacities, as well as their physical body. And I'm asking that very intelligent body to tell me what's out of alignment, what's out of balance, what needs to be done here. Amazingly, the body talks back to me. And then I just follow that. And it actually works beautifully. I do something similar with a sacred site. I do something similar when I'm in a place where there are um, vortexes or ley lines or earth grid lines or some kind of energy there that needs balancing, rebalancing, realignment, a change to it. So I'm taking what I've been doing with just everyday human beings and dropping it onto the earth in terms of if we believe, and here's the foundational belief I think that works best is that energy is never destroyed, it's always just transformed. And we are energy, and we are the earth, and the earth is us. And with those foundational beliefs, that's kind of what I'm operating off of when I'm out there working with a site, a sacred site, or even not a sacred. There's so many sacred sites across the world, some that we haven't even discovered yet. that I could go almost anywhere and there's work to be done.
Hmm. Brilliant, brilliant. Now, some people might call this grid work. Do you have a name for it?
I call it earth grid work.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'm doing when I'm out there doing earth grid work, and it is was a calling that came to me, is I was told that one of the energies that's really, really important for us as humans to learn is that we're all one. We're all connected. There's a unity consciousness that needs to be infused into the earth grid lines and was at one time. It was not like it wasn't there before. It was at one time. We're just reestablishing it, remembering that it was there so that it'll affect all humans so that we will know we're one global family. We're not separate from each other and that it behooves us to work together and to still maintain our sovereignty as individuals, but to also at the same time, because we can't hold both at the same time, know that we are in unity and in connection with each other. And that when we harm ourselves or another, we're harming everyone. And when we are good to ourselves and to others, we're good to everyone. So those are some of the things that I also, and I do ritual around that. I will create a set of light codes and I will infuse those physically on a piece of paper into the ground with the idea of expanding that energy of consciousness, of unity consciousness out into the world.
Uh, that sounds good. What do you mean when you say light codes?
Well, I did work with a teacher and she provided the light codes for me. It's not like I came up with them. Although lately I've been being downloaded with light codes just, they're almost like sacred geometry and they're shining and I can see them. And those, I'm sure that's where she also got hers from, but she's put them down on paper. And I've used those on just a little scrap of paper that I ball up, I bury it in the ground, and then I do some kind of prayer or intention around that with the idea of expanding it out
Nice.
and letting the
That's-
earth know, because the earth is a sentient being, letting the earth know that we're there with her because she's expanding right now and I'm sure we can all see it, the volcanoes, the earthquakes, and the floods. Those are all evidence of the expansion that earth is making right now as she moves into a higher consciousness.
Oh man. Well, let's pause on that for a moment. Let's hold there for put a pin in that. I think that some of our listeners will certainly be already working with earth energies in their own way, shape, and form. Others perhaps not. Some of our viewers will be working with human energies through like Reiki or polarity or whatever people are doing, or perhaps with psychic abilities, let's say non-physical, more subtle energies, such as you're doing. Um, what would you what would you have them know? You mentioned when you graduated from doing working with human energies really to working with energies of place. What would you have our viewers uh, carry? Let's say carry what stepping stones did you see for yourself that you might see for other people?
I think that one of the most important things that we can do right now in this time frame is move your energy as much as you can into your heart and become very familiar with your heart energies and what those are. So that's kind of a practice of inner awareness. And I advocate for everyone some kind of stillness practice or spiritual practice that you select that resonates with you and your heart. Now, for some people, that could be dancing or some kind of movement. For other people, it could mean being outside. The earth, being out in nature, being connected to the earth is very, very stabilizing, especially with the kind of screen time that we have and the amount of time that people are on screens. It's very stabilizing to be in the earth. And it's a reminder that we are connected to Mother Earth, that we come from her and she supports us. So that's really important. Is get a stillness or spiritual practice. It could be meditation. It could be gardening. There's probably just as many stillness practices or spiritual practices as there are human beings on the earth. So it's up to you to, it could be journaling. You know, mine are journaling, movement, and gardening, which I'll run outside to my garden almost every day and find a way. I walk in nature. So those are some of the ways, but there's so many. A practice that I have that I think would be good for a lot of people is as soon as I'm up in the morning and I've said a few gratitudes, I will walk outside in my bare feet, because standing outside in your bare feet for as little as 5 minutes, because the pores on the bottom of our feet are very large and they can absorb energy. They will absorb the energy from the earth if you're standing on sand, gravel, grass, even a little bit on concrete, but ideally on grass.
Mhm.
And I sometimes I'll try to stay out there for longer, for 20 minutes. And other times I'll sit with my back against a tree, because you literally are absorbing, and they've proven this in science, that you're absorbing the energy of nature, and you already are nature. So if you become destabilized by your electronics, by your technology, that's a good way to restabilize yourself.
Beautiful.
Another way that people might consider, besides finding a daily practice and besides coming into your heart, um, hold on, I'm just going to check because um, learning to clear, cleanse, and purify your energy field. That's important too. I'm not always so good about that, but I have been at times, and I'm not always good about that. One of the things I just started doing, which has been really good, is taking a shower at night, so that I actually run the water over myself and I'm allowing everything that I've accumulated during the day, whether it's a thought, somebody else's energy, it just washes down the drain. And then when I go to sleep, I feel very clean and purified and um, ready for going into the fourth dimension, which is the dream world. So that's another thing I think that people can do. The third thing is find a way to clean, clear, and purify your energy field. Whether you do it in the morning, whether you do it midday, or in the evening, you choose, or before you are going out amongst large groups of people. Because the reality is we're all interconnected. So we are picking up other people's energy, whether we like it or not. And it's good for us to have a practice that allows us to let go of other people's energy that we don't need to hold on to.
Wow. Wow. Well, you've got a knack for answering my questions before I can even ask them.
Oh,
Uh, so trying to stay two steps ahead here. So for myself, two things. Uh, I I don't trust just anybody to move my grid lines around. You know, I like to think that they've got pretty good psychic vision before they start moving the grid lines around. But I mean, and 100% agree with everything you've said up to this point. My only quarrel would be like, well, I wouldn't want to get involved in, redirecting these negative energies, given that I don't really have energetic sight. I would be, I don't want to be tempting fate and just like visiting graveyards and picking up spirits. I would want to know that I'm surrounded by and protected by my guides and angels, and also have some psychic self-defense skills, I would think. Do you have any, like, I don't want to say horror stories, but experiences where I mean, there could be a cost to like say plucking something off the ground that was set in place as kind of a ward or with some energy on it or something. How do you?
Um, I am always protected. So that's sort of like one of those things you have faith in. I'll tell you, I have had some situations early on that I had to learn from. They weren't horrible. Apparently, I've probably been doing this in more than just this lifetime because there's certain things I just knew. I am very, very well protected by my guidance. Um, very well protected. In fact, I've had other psychics come up to me and say, "Whoa, you're so," they've mentioned it. You've got this amazing team that is protecting you. So that's nice to know. When I was training in to become an advanced channel and a number of other things that I did over a 2 to 4 year period, um, 4 years total, I and I wasn't prepared for this. One time I was sleeping and I wake up and there's a little dwarf by my side of my bed. And I'm like, what is that? But it was an energy from someone in my class. And I could feel the energy. It matched. And so but I wanted to make sure I wasn't making this up. So I go back and I keep asking my guidance to guide me through this. And what it ended up being with was someone who was slightly jealous of my abilities in the class. And it was the teaching assistant. It wasn't luckily the teacher. It was the teaching assistant. And she was astrally traveling and coming into my bedroom, which I do not like because that I think breaches a level of ethics in this work, which is you always ask permission. Yeah.
Thank,
So
thank you.
what I learned from that, the more important point is what did I learn? Well, I learned that before I go to bed, I throw my energetic shield up. And in the old days, that's what prayers were for. That's why people said prayers before bed, was because it was an energetic protection for people. So I now do the same thing. I've not had a problem since. Um, I do know that for some reason, lucky me, I can deal with the deepest, darkest, mysterious things that are out there because all my friends who do what I do call me up and say, "Hey, Mikki, can I send you this client because they've got some really deep dark stuff?" Or they'll send me their worst, the ones they won't work with. And I always will check in with my guidance and ask, is this something that I actually can work with? And I have 99% of the time heard yes. Even when I say to myself in my head, what? Can I really do that? I wasn't even sure I could do it, but my guidance, I trust them implicitly. And they've always been on target. And they've said, yes, you can. And then I do it and I can. So, there's a level of trust and there's a level of faith that goes along with this work. And it's always tested, but it's been good for me. So I've been able to come out of it pretty well. Yeah.
Wow, that feels pretty complete, but it does remain to be asked. What are your professional ambitions at this point? What kind of people do you want to work with, and how should how should people get in touch with you if they want to have more
Well,
conversations?
yeah, I work with people who are feeling any kind of doubt or uncertainty or something feels stuck or they're interested more in they're feeling stuck in their own personal life. So that's the ones that I will work with one on one to see how we can just remove that block. I am moving toward, and I'm going to work with both. I'm still going to work with human beings because it works and I'm able to help a lot of people and I love that. But I am moving more towards working with the earth, working with grid lines, working as someone who remembers um, that the grid lines, earth grid lines and ley lines, and even cosmic ley lines were a part of ancient people's knowledge and wisdom that they've known about for a long, long time. And we've just had a brief 2,000 years of kind of forgetting about it. So now it's time for us to remember it. So all I'm doing is going back and removing any of the blocks and obstacles that caused us to forget about that long ago time when we understood earth grid lines, when we understood ley lines, when we understood how vital they were to the energy of our earth and our own energy as human beings, and how knowing that elevates our consciousness. And so I'm bridging the ancient wisdom with the modern day world that we live in so that we can pull those memories from a long ago and incorporate them into the time that we're in today for the benefit of each individual human, each individual animal, plant, rock, and the earth itself. And that will just cause us to walk the path into that luminous new earth that we're headed toward in a much bigger, brighter, better way than we ever imagined.
Holy cow, Mikki, I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm so glad we made this time for you to say that. That's genius. It's inspired. Thanks so much. So say your website for gosh sake so people
So,
can continue to get your wisdom.
you can reach me through, and I believe that it will be, recorded below, but I'm at lifeinflowenergy.com. And you also can email me at spreadingwonder@gmail.com.
Okay. Wow. Well, I hate to stop you because it just keeps getting better, but I think that's a pretty great place to stop, though.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
Thanks so much, Mikki. I'm going to stop recording, hang out for another minute.